Thanks, Bruce. That was very helpful. There's always something new, and so it's great to be able to get a piece of taste of what we've got to work with in terms of helping us teach better. I wanted to thank the Curriculum Council for helping plan this conference. I appreciate all their work and discussion we've had over the months preparing for this meeting. I'd also like to thank Sarah Donkey from the Dean's Office and other Dean's Office staff for helping, and Dean Ogles for supporting this conference year after year. So please join me, give a little round of applause for them. So I'm happy that we have Patty Freeman here from the undergraduate education. She's Associate Dean in the undergraduate education here at BYU. We go way back to our missions in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a long time ago. So I've known Patty since that time. Since I was a teenager, yeah. But she's been a teacher here at BYU since, was it 99? She's a professor of recreation management in the experience design and management department. She's been department chair there when it was recreation management, is that right? Before the name change. And she's been working very diligently on this redesign of general education. She's very interested in students having a great experience here and learning a variety of things that will be helpful for them throughout their lives. She's very thoughtful, worked with a number of committees, and she's really interested in student success. And so she's here to talk to us about what students need to thrive, and I appreciate her being here. Please welcome Patty.
Can you hear? Is it on? Oh, no, it's not. I need my glasses. That's what happens when you get old and you're not a teenager anymore. So, all right. Oops, that's a little bit. I'll stand over here. All right, let me get the clicker. So, as Sam said, he asked me to come and to talk to you about some of the insights we've gained as we've collected data from students in this process of learning about how we can design and redesign a GE. I know some of you, I don't know lots of you by name. I'm going to be asking for questions and feedback, giving an opportunity to interact a little bit with each other. So I hope you're ready to act like a student, a good student in your classroom. And then what I'm really going to share quite a bit of is some information. Dr. Laura Scheinman was on our campus earlier in this semester, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to attend her presentations, but I went to a couple of them, and she at the time said, yes, please use this on your campus. I double checked with her. So there's a good chunk of this. It's really her work, but I thought it was really applicable when Sam asked about helping students sort of be successful, because all of her research is on helping students thrive. And I think that implies success. So as you look at these pictures, as you think about a student experience, what's the difference between playing to win, and not as school as a game, but life, I think this analogy works well, versus playing not to lose. I'm not a huge sports fan, but when I was a student here, I attended more games, but it always kind of bugged me when I was the armchair coach, which we say like we did well, no, we didn't, I wasn't down there playing, but we would be ahead, the team would be ahead, and then they'd kind of go into stall mode. And I really couldn't figure out why they were doing that, because it never seemed to turn out very well. So if I was playing chess, I'm not a chess player, so all I can do when I play chess is just try to prolong the loss. So I really don't have a clue what's going on. I can't remember who does what. The cross-country skier, I know there's a rhyme or reason to what they're doing, and like the Peloton and what bike race too. I mean, they're really propelling somebody to win, so they're not trying to avoid losing. But the one I can really connect with the best is, I don't know if any of you played hearts or spades. So if you play hearts or spades, in my house we call it running it, but I guess in the rule book it says shoot the moon, right? So if any of you shot the moon in hearts or spades, that's what we call spades. And when you get the hand, does your heart start beating and you think, oh my gosh, maybe I could do this? And then I'm not a good card counter anymore, especially as I get older, and so I lose track of things. And all of a sudden I flip from, I'm gonna do this to, I'm not gonna do this, I don't wanna do it. And I really play to just not lose. And I almost always lose, almost always. I get a lot of points, or I get, all the points except for one that somebody else takes a heart or a spade, depending on the game. So what does this have to do with students and thriving? What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, you know what? If you're playing not to lose, you don't take risks. And risk is many times what the greatest creative experiences happen.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. As faculty, I think a lot of this applies to us as faculty. Are we thriving in our faculty role? Am I just trying, again, hanging on until I retire? I worry about that as I get closer to retirement. Am I going to be the one that's like, I'm just hanging on? I hope I'm not, but we do that sort of mentality. So as we go through some of the slides today and conversation, have that in mind. Again, how are we helping our students win? How are we helping our students to thrive? Okay, so thriving is more than just surviving. I was our department chair when we were, some of you were not here at BYU, it was 10 years ago, it feels like it was actually a year ago, that they disbanded our college in the Richards building. And we went to a meeting on a Thursday with the department chair, so the vice president at the time told us our college was being disbanded. He assigned us where we were going. I went down the hall and I had a phone message from the my new dean, Gary Corning, who was the dean at the time of the business school. And my mantra that whole time of that transition, I was the chair for 6 years at that time, was we're not just going to survive. We have to figure out a way to thrive. We cannot just hang on and survive. And I think that evolution started and has continued on long past me being the chair. So we want our students to not just survive. They have to want that too, as well. Okay? So, I need to not know how to do this. Okay. All right. Helping students thrive. How does BYU define success of our students? What are indicators of success at BYU? So graduation and graduation rate, right? So those of you that deal with assessment data reporting, we report the 6-year graduation rate. And our 6-year graduation rate looks pretty good across compared to the country. How else do we, as BYU as an institution, how else do you think they define success? Yeah. Students who go to grad school, whether it's master's, PhD. Okay, thank you. I said another hand.
There's lots of not quantifiable or qualitative measures.
So let's talk about that.
Like, do they have good mental health? Do they have a good experience at BYU? Do they grow spiritually and intellectually? All those things we can't quantify very well.
Yeah. So we tend to report things we can quantify and report easily, right? The things that came up first. Yeah, that's another part of that. And I think that gets to the thriving piece. Right? So what is our students' mental health? What is their level of engagement? We do quantify that. We have an engagement report that comes out. And some areas we do really well in, and other areas we don't necessarily shine in compared to our peer institutions. So I want you to take a moment in your notes, on your phone, in your brain, and I just want you to jot down, how do you define student success in your classroom? What does success look like in your classroom? So just think about that. You're not gonna share it in front of the whole group unless you want to, but I just want you to write. Okay, I'm just gonna give you 35 seconds, 45 seconds to write. Take about 10 more seconds to wrap up. All right. Anybody want to share some of the things you wrote down? What does it look like? Finding your heart that you want to share. Yeah.
That was 3 things. One is there's certain mastery of skills or information I want them to do.
Okay.
But that's actually secondary me. I want them to learn how to think,
Okay.
and I want them to become lifelong learners.
Okay, great. Learning how to think, lifelong learner, things that many of us I'm sure think about. Any other?
Excited, engaged, maybe looking for new applications.
You being excited and engaged and looking for new applications, all right? Yes,
Along those lines, do students show pride in what they've accomplished in the class?
okay, showing pride for what they have accomplished, great. Was there another hand that I missed? So keep those in mind, okay? That little mental list you just made, whether it's written or just in your mind. Did you have what they like? Okay, sorry. Keep them in mind again as we talk over the next 40, 35 minutes, okay? So I'm going to share with you what our students have said that they would like or need to help them thrive and be successful. And then we're going to also, I'm going to share information from Dr. Shailen about what her research shows, okay? So to do that, when we're trying to understand, as we thought about a new GE, and designing a new GE, we really wanted to understand from the student's perspective, and faculty perspective, advisor perspective, as many stakeholders as we could get voice from, okay? So we looked at 3 years of data from the alumni questionnaires. And so you may have access to those and look at them. Mostly what we looked at was really the qualitative piece. Overarching, overwhelmingly, a general finding and things related to, we're trying to find things related to GE. There's not a lot of questions, but we're just trying to find anything that's sort of, gives around a broader education, cutting across the entire campus. This probably is not new to you, not new information, but students, participating in internships and regularly working closely with faculty, is the most important factor in helping students acquire their first job. You will see this come back over and over again. Working with faculty, being around faculty, okay? And I'm going to touch on that in just a minute in a little bit more detail with a story or a little vignette. Continuing on, these were things that we pulled out of the data, experiences, attributes, opportunities that students noted really qualitatively, looking through their open comments, okay? This was not from a specific question. These are in rough order. We didn't do a true full like content analysis or using Vivo. We just were kind of tallying and grouping descriptively, okay? Direct relevance, not surprising, to their education to real life. So connecting what they're learning to their life. Again, nothing probably new there. Quality of teaching. This is what you're here for. Well done. My college doesn't do something like this. This is kind of cool. I listened to Bruce and I thought, I have no idea what the Merit School has in terms of resources you just shared. I don't think I've ever heard a present, I've never been updated like that, so that was awesome. This is what you're here for today. One thing that stood out to me is there was more than one note on exactly what I'm doing right now. They said, please don't just give us PowerPoint after PowerPoint. We know that. If you're my age or older, that might be all we know. And so it's really hard to break our habit of that. But what they said wasn't so much PowerPoint, it was like reading it. Reading it. Don't just read to us. How can we be more interactive? Okay? So I think, again, for us to stop and think about, so my department's now called Experience Design and Management, designing experiences. How do we design our teaching and learning experience? Do we think about that? I'm sure some of you do. Maybe some of you don't. I do when I don't teach something regularly, like a presentation. I don't know that I've gone back to every class period and thought, what's my beginning? What's the middle? What's the main point? What's sort of the climax? What's my parting shot? And how many times have you sat as a student, I won't say us guilty as a faculty, that at the end you're just whipping through the PowerPoint slides and you're saying, we're almost out of time, so I have to hurry and get through this. I guarantee, is that effective for you? Like, does that work? It probably would work. It's probably not working for them. So I think we tend to, not all of us by any means, we tend to think content first and learning experience maybe second. I would encourage us today, when you're thinking and working on us, to think about the experience of that student first. And I know years ago, when they first introduced learning outcomes here to us, I mean, education was doing it, some departments weren't doing it, but when the general university population had to do it, I remember Jim Gordon coming and Garrett Gong and saying, I think it was actually Garrett Donovan, it wasn't Jim Gordon, it was Garrett Donovan back in the day. And he said, you know, your department, your program should have 5 to 7 program learning outcomes, period. And there were departments I was not good with health at the time, like, hey, public health, we have like 25 or 42, we can't just have 5 to 7. And then they just kept kind of hammering away and saying, distill it down. What are the 5 to 7 things you want students to learn? And I've thought about that with the course. I've gone back and I actually did review my course at that time and said 5 to 7. Because I can remember 5 to 7 things on a grocery list, right? In the middle of 5 plus or minus 2. So what do we want our students to most know, okay? Again, here you go, faculty availability, commitment, dedication. I was talking about this one day, so I chair our faculty general education committee. Every college has a representative on that committee. So there's one from FHSS and then all the colleges. We were talking something about this. And afterwards, I had a member of FGEC say to me, why would a student want to spend time with me? And it kind of surprised me. I said, well, why wouldn't they want to spend time with you? And he said, well, the fact of the matter is, I don't know that I want to spend time with them. It gets in the way of my research. And I was kind of blown away by that. And I said, you have no idea what the impact of your time with a student will be. Even if it's just in the hall after for 10 seconds, you don't know the impact of that. And I can say that from a discipline that's done a lot of experiential like outdoor recreation. So I've spent a lot of time with students who've done study abroad or labs or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. This was new information to him. He really, I don't think, believed it. I don't know if he does it any stronger now, but I was surprised. He did not see that what would a student possibly see in him that they would benefit from? And so we talked about that some. So again, being available, okay? Again, this opportunity to think about your class size and working collaboratively. Nothing new there. Course flexibility. What I gathered that as I looked at where we pulled that from, it was it could be blended learning. Some was that way. Some was online. But even it was, is there flexibility from the faculty member? Can they see that we're kind of not keeping up, and can they work with us on this? And what they said is, I know this faculty member cared about me. It was in more than one comment because she or he adjusted the schedule because we weren't getting the content. That's how they interpreted that. So something to think about there. Again, in your own teaching. All right. Spirituality. We think of that as, well, of course it's BYU. What we have found is we've talked to lots of faculty about the GE Academy and then through all the envisioning workshops in the fall that we did, envisioning GE and UG, so you may have attended those workshops. We had about 170 faculty attend. As not surprisingly on one hand is, hey, that's what religion does. It's not what we do. And students are saying, not just here at BYU and national data, this matters. This matters, okay? We've had accreditation visitors on campus say, wait, this is a religious school. Where's all of your religious stuff? You put it over here, and how come it's not infused in your course? And that's from people coming from the outside saying, why isn't it infused across GE or across other classes? So if you're like me, that's not something I do. I have a hard time thinking, I don't know how to bring the spirit into some of my content. For sure, some of it comes very easy. Maybe your content fits. I don't know how to do it, but to be pondering on that. How can we do this? It matters to students, okay? So what implications does this have for us as faculty? As you look at this. So what I'm hoping today, I imagine there's fabulous teachers in this room. I think across the board we have pretty good faculty at BYU teaching quite well. I always come in and think, what tip, nugget, takeaway can I get? If I can get 1 to 3 takeaways in a day or a session, I feel like, hey, that was worth my time. So did anything strike you here as you thought, oh, I could attend to that differently in my class? I haven't thought about it quite like that. Anything cross your mind? Yeah.
I think course flexibility is a double-edged sword. I mean, it depends if it's interpreted as like you don't know how to manage the material, and therefore you're always adjusting it. But it's another thing to say, you know what, there was a suicide on campus, and we're going to have to think differently this next week or 2 about some of the assignments because of things beyond the classroom. So I think you have to be in tune with where students are, but also not adjust your material in a way that reflects poorly on your management of content.
Thank you. I'm glad you said, I thought of that earlier. Course organization had come up as well, and I agree completely, yeah, with that statement. Other thoughts that crossed your mind? Yes, yeah.
I teach big classes. I teach 300 students a semester, and so it's hard to get to know them well. But what I do is have student lunches once a month, where I can have 10 or 12 of them come, and I keep it that small because otherwise you can't really talk very well. And just give them a chance to come outside of office hours. They don't have to have any burning questions or anything like that, but just come and get to know us and talk about what their interests are and things. And in the past, we had funds for that. Now we don't, but students are still willing to bring in brown bag lunches, and it gives them a chance to sort of get to know the faculty a little bit better.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Strike as we go through this.
In terms of spirituality, I know the Faculty Center under Alan Wilkins has done a lot of research, did a lot of research about integrating the spiritual with the secular, and they've got a lot of good information and reports. I know that in terms of spirituality, what they were finding in the research, because I taught a class that collected the data for them, was that it wasn't so much you sang a hymn at the beginning, it wasn't so much you started with prayer, it was in the life of the professor. As the professor taught the class, they could see that the professor had a testimony, was committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ, and was interested in their spiritual development, but not in a way that seemed forced or phony. It was the way that they lived their lives, and they could see it in the classroom.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I've heard that data and I just was on my mind at the moment. So yeah, that presentation of that information is critical. Yeah, they also want to see that we're real human beings. And there's always that, like, how much do I share? What don't I share? There's that balance again. But we're real in terms of our testimonies. All right, so going on, these are recommendations that students made actually from sociology classes. I continue to use your data, Michael, over and over and over. So Michael attended the GE Academy 2 years ago, and he heard this idea of kind of the GE moonshot, kind of launching this idea of could we look at a new GE? He approached him and said, hey, could I help with some understanding of student perspective with my sociology class? So we worked with them for a whole year, 4 different class sections where they interviewed students, surveyed students, faculty, and advisors. And so we have a whole bunch of data from him. So I'm just going to pull out some of the data today. We obviously can't do a whole lot about this. We have limited resources. And this is not just about GE. I think there's applicability across the board. How many of you in here teach general education classes? Okay, so a number, about half that are here. I think there's applicability across the board. If we can do something about class size, that matters to students, okay? I love this idea. How the best teachers teach GE. As we did our faculty and visioning workshops in the fall, faculty themselves said, the only reason I'm teaching GE is because it's my turn, or I was hired new, and the person who has been here longer said they were done. That's the rare, that's not the norm. I don't believe it's the norm. But for chairs, for associate deans, for dean's offices, to say, these are the classes that impact all of our students across campus. Can we get our best teachers in here? I love those who are engaging, they care about students, they're available. Make the curriculum hands-on, animated, and love the content. So let's talk for just a minute, reflect on that, making the curriculum hands-on. Large lecture, 300 students, 100 students. Even a room like this room is not conducive to much hands-on in many ways. I have a sister who is an adjunct actually in your college here. She was on her way to come to this morning. I got a text that said she was riding front runner down from Salt Lake, and unfortunately, somebody crossed the barrier and the train unfortunately hit a car. So she's stuck on the train. She teaches clothing. It's pretty hands-on. Like, I don't think you can get more hands-on than sewing something. I'm not a sewer, she is. But she was a public school teacher. She understands pedagogy pretty well. She looked at how they were teaching, or she was talking to me one day, and she said, we have this long lecture that teaches the students how to do this, and then we finally set them free to do it, and they've forgotten what I said to them 10 steps ago. So she went back in a class that's very hands-on, that we would look at and say, that is completely interactive, and took the time and redid the module to say, we've got to teach them, let them practice sooner. They're getting lost in the steps. So rather than saying, I don't know how to do it, let's reach out to people who do. CTL knows how to do it. Public school teachers, they're pretty good at this. They play entertainment all day long with a pretty rough audience. People in your department who are your best teachers in your college, what can we learn from them? Let's reach out to them and learn from them, okay? Make courses more applicable to life. We've seen that before. All right, continuing on. I thought this was interesting. Again, this was about GE classes, but I think it could be true for any class. Students said they wanted to know more information about the courses up front, but not through email. Because what do they do with their email? They just delete it, okay? They don't want all the emails coming in. So you can just look down through those. And again, is there something there that you see that, I hadn't thought of this. They would like to see a video of the teacher teaching. We may not like that. So the way that we know that students, we've talked to enough students, the most common way that they pick their GE courses, what do you think? How do you think they're selecting their GE courses? Rate my professor. Yeah, they're going to rate my professor. It's not the worst way, but it's the best way. Okay? So again, is there ways that you can help students know up front even what to expect in your class? I don't think about that very often. I'm lucky if I get the syllabus ready to go, finish up the day before and publish it on the Learning Suite. Gosh, wouldn't it be great if I actually did that a month ahead of time? I learned from my sister. She has them all done for next fall already. So, just things to think about. How can we improve the student learning experience by small little things? Okay? All right, I'm now going to transition to the work from Dr. Schreiner. She spent a day, like I said, on campus with us. Not just me personally, many different offices on campus. Azusa Pacific University, I was not familiar with it, is actually a faith-based school in California that I had not heard of. So, what are the ABCs of thriving? So I want you to think for a minute. Think about a time you were thriving. Just reflect in your mind. Whatever the word thrive means to you. Let's say in the past month, if there was a time you were thriving in the past month, but wasn't in the past month, during the fall or winter semester. When did you feel like you were thriving? Sort back through. Let's see. So was it something to do with your work, your research, your teaching, relationships, how you felt emotionally? When were you thriving? And think about the attributes of that, okay? So what I'd like you to do is just, if you can move by somebody, turn around. Again, this room's not great for this. Just describe attributes of thriving. You don't have to tell your experience, but just how do you describe, how do you know that you were thriving? So just turn to somebody. If you're not by somebody, if you're willing to move. If not, just with yourself, that's fine. So just take a minute. And we're going to categorize this briefly, quickly, under the ABCs of thriving. So as you heard the words descriptors, what would you say fit under affect? What were terms used that had to do with your affect or the people you were talking with, their affect? What were terms? Accomplishment. Peaceful. Passion.
Hopeful.
Did you say helpful or hopeful?
Hopeful.
Hopeful, thank you.
Motivated.
Motivated. Anything else? Productive. Okay. That might be behavior. Maybe, I don't know, not that we need to split hairs over this, but it's a good word. Okay. Now, if you're not thriving as a faculty member, can our students really thrive? And think about that stuff. If we don't thrive as a campus, can our students thrive? So that's beyond today, beyond teaching. How do you know if your students are thriving? Be thinking about that. So you're thinking about your own thriving experience. How can we check in to see if our students are thriving? Do we think about that? I don't know that I always think about that. I know I can tell when they're not thriving, for sure. I know that. When they're absent from class, when they're missing assignments. So I know the absence of thriving. I don't know that I think much about the presence of thriving. B, behavior. So we heard productivity, so you said, yeah. Other things around behavior. What were things you were doing during this time of thriving? Sorry, say that again.
More friendly when you're trying.
So you made it more friendly, okay? What else? Other things you can do, maybe would fit under behavior. Motivation might be behavioral, but I'm not a psychologist, but we'll pretend it might be. You guys are? Yeah.
You feel more energetic and productive. Active.
Yeah, energetic, productive, active. Yeah, those are words that her researchers found, okay? And then what about this cognition? What's in our cognitive state when we're thriving?
We don't feel stressed, so we feel kind of in this flow state.
Yeah, okay. Things are moving along seamlessly. We can meet the skills, the challenge, the activity, we said flow, maybe think of that, okay? Others, was there a hand over here? Yeah.
Problem solving?
Problem solving, we know how to do it. We feel pretty confident maybe doing it. When the action of doing it, yeah. Engaging, okay, yeah.
Also draw the blank on the word that's in my mind, but I remember like more cognitive presence in whatever I'm engaging in. Right? So when I'm in church, I'm more present there. When I'm at work, I'm more present there.
Yeah.
Rather than being cognitively present somewhere where I'm not.
Is that mindfulness? Is that the word?
Yeah.
I mean, is that, yeah, I don't know, but that might, I went to a class on it recently, and I was really bad at it, so, yeah.
This is a bit redundant with what other people said, but I feel when I'm driving, I feel competent and challenged. Feeling competent without feeling challenged in driving, and feeling challenged without feeling competent in driving. For me, it's that zone where I'm
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So again, you can stop and think, how do I know if my students are thriving? Okay, and maybe what's in the back of your mind, we're going to get to at the end of this, and what's my responsibility around students thriving? All right, so keep that in mind. So thriving, this is how Dr. Schreiner defined it as you're fully engaged, we're energized, and we're making the most of our college experience. Okay, we have the interplay of doing our best academically, being psychologically, realistically optimistic, and good interpersonal relationships and skills. I love this idea about realistically optimistic. She has some funny anecdotes, and I don't know if it's based in data or not, but of children of helicopter parents who've been told how awesome they are. And I still have young children. That's one thing I really appreciate about Sam. A couple years ago, I was at a meeting, and they talked about the age of his youngest child. And when he said, I felt so validated. I'm not the only one who could be my youngest child's grandmother. So, so I still have children, a young child who's playing, rec ball. And I'm amazed when I hear parents say, it's not even, like, the pitch coming in, it's not even, like, close. I mean, I'm not a baseball player, but it's not even close. And then the parent will be like, good eye. I was like, good eye? Like that, you'd have to have a bad eye to not want to swing, right? I mean, you weren't even close. And I have to tell you, maybe I'm just like a grumpy old mom, but it kind of drives me nuts to go to these baseball games. I have to tell you, because the parents, it's nonstop chatter about how awesome everything that their child does. And so, my poor child, like, he gets very little validation. Like, hey, I don't know, unless it's good, apparently they don't say much. But what they found is that now we perceive ourselves in unrealistic ways. And this happens with teens, I think, anyway. Is that true? You psychologists in the room know what I'm saying. I don't want to be saying stuff that's not true. So I have two boys that got twins who are just filling out their mission papers. I'm not a helicopter parent. I past time don't know where my kids are. No, that's not true. I do. They do things that they would get very hurt doing, and it's okay. It's not football. They filled out their mission papers. I was just kind of going through them. I was a helicopter parent, so I understand the word spell. And they said that they really wanted to learn a language, which shocked me, because once through nobody can spell language, and I strongly agree. And then their aptitude for learning language, like they said they would be like excellent, whatever the mark is. It's like, I'm trying to act calm, like I'm trying not to how do you think you might be really good at learning a language? And our one son worked on he was a ranch hand, and he worked with a gentleman who was a ranch manager who was from Mexico, and he goes, I can understand him pretty well. It's like, okay, well, I mean, if that means that you're strongly good at, or very good at that, have at it. Like, well, we'll just let them work through this out, because I would have never put you in the language category. So being realistic about, and that says optimistic, but realistic about our abilities and what we can do. So those are 3 areas, again, to think about in terms of thriving. Continuing on, so she developed 2010 this thriving quotient. Is anybody familiar with this, her work? So this idea of like the intelligent quotient, so these 5 constructs, but through the 24-item instrument that they did a comparative factor analysis, and then a 5-factor model that relates to thriving. So we're going to go through this just very briefly. So here are the 5 factors that relate to thriving, all right? And we're going to look at each one just in order of their internal consistency, not the relationship with thriving. She didn't share that data with us to know which one was the strongest indicator of thriving, which I would have been interested in hearing. So the first one is engaged learning. What you're here today to talk about is, so what does it look like? So this is from her data, when students can meaningfully process in class, after class, metacognition mainly, and making connections to their personal interests, what they know, their goals, classmates, others in the class, and the instructor. Again, what opportunities do we take as faculty to be purposeful and intentional about this? How often do we help them make connections to other classes that follow through that connection? Some in your disciplines that may follow very nicely. Others, they're more disparate topics that make up the major. Just to be mindful and think about that. Energy, okay? What's their energy? What's the faculty member's energy? And engaging in that way. And then finding personal relevance, which we've talked about. So there's some things that keep showing up. The connection with faculty, do they find things as self-relevant? And that has application to lots of areas in my discipline of work too, okay? In her opinion, this leads to learning that lasts. She did not give us longitudinal data to know if it was really lasting or not. We do have good data, I think, from pedagogy that how little we actually do remember. And I think if we think about that, and would really think about that, it might change pretty dramatically how we teach and what we teach when we realize how little our students remember. Especially when you do learning transfers, we've done that in our curriculum. What we thought students would get from their pre-management classes and what they would bring to the table once they got into our major, and it's pretty shocking what they don't bring to the table. Even the best students, it's pretty shocking what they don't bring to the table. All right, the second one is academic determination. So these are the attributes of the student, right? But how can we shape this? How can we influence? Because these are all malleable. Her perspective is these can all be changed, improved, adjusted. How can we as faculty influence and strengthen this now? How can we help our students with their academic determination? Yes?
So one of the things we were talking about was the fact that we felt like what we're doing is the opposite, is getting students to the opposite of thriving, because what we're constantly doing in classes is trying to create exams and things, all of which will amp up the anxiety of our students, so that our students will feel anxious and feel like they have to put work in, right? And it seems like that kind of works against thriving and potentially works against academic determination, in the sense that it would be better if we had ways that they can engage with the material that would animate them, where they'd be motivated, where they'd be able to get into the kind of flow state that Joe was mentioning, and have this sort of relaxed but intensely engaged experience with the material, rather than an anxious and perhaps maybe less engaged engagement with the material that is more sort of superficial and about getting the answers for the test.
Great.
And that's a big thing.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's great insight. Dr. Schreiner suggests that we can help them strengthen this now by teaching them to be sort of more self-regulated in their learning. So what does that mean? Does it mean to be a more self-regulated learner? I'm not sure I fully know, but what does that term conjure up? Forget things that they learned in high school. I mean, is it problem solving? I mean, I think it's getting us to what you said. You know, did any of you go to, I'm not taking roll calls for the form attendance, but Sagana Vitri's forum on the hole in the wall? Anybody attend that? You know, you were on the stand probably, right? I mean, I sat and I listened and I thought, oh, you know, what he's saying is these children can learn without a teacher in the room. And so I thought, no, I might like that idea, you know? That means I don't have to be here all semester. It's joking. But I thought, okay, what would this mean? What would this mean? How could I help them to be more self-learning, more engaged in a classroom setting? I haven't come with answers or solutions for my own class, but helping them again to regulate, to see themselves as learners and how they learn. Did you have a?
What made it work for him is he gave the kids problems they wanted to solve that were really hard.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of these happen when we give them an interesting problem to work on that we motivate as having real applicability in their life, but it's really challenging to do, and so then they spend a lot of time outside the classroom to solve the problem.
Real life hard problems. Yeah, so in our GE envisioning work and redesign work, that's where we have seen that faculty said kind of in a quite a pivot from what we do in distribution model on a survey course. That's part of it, I'm sure, but is that give them hard problems. It doesn't have to be starting at the cell level in the biology class. Let's give them, you know, a biological issue. Let's give them an environmental issue. Let's have them talk in interdisciplinary teams about an electric car, and not just from the environment, but from, you know, economics and from supply chain and distribution, and give them complex problems that are real life problems. And it's amazing the feedback from, I think it was a Notre Dame faculty member who said, I didn't think I could do that in an entry-level GE class, but it worked remarkably well when he got them in interdisciplinary teams in that GE class. So again, something to think about. We can help them, our students now, by the kind of projects and assignments we give them, to help them to regulate their own learning, to know how they learn. Do we spend time, we might, talking to students about how they learn, helping them discover how they learn. They may not have a clue how they learn. We learn different ourselves. They learn different, okay? I like this quote. It's really essential to me that the backdrop of the gift is the sense that how do we view our students when they're sitting in our classroom? Some of you may be thinking, but I'm not their cheerleader. I'm not their mom. I'm not their dad. I don't want to go watch them at their volleyball game. I was just saying this the other day, like, man, I went through Young Women's, 35 years ago, and I never had an advisor show up to anything I did. I'm okay. Well, times have changed, right? Our demographics have changed. Our society has changed. Are we willing to make similar changes in how we teach? Or do we expect that they will just do it how we did it? And why can't they do how we do it? Why can't they learn how we learn? So again, to think about how our students learn and see them as a room full of potential and what they can bring to your class. Social connectedness, we've talked about that. That's pretty self-explanatory. But do we think about that in our classroom? Do we help them connect? In a room of 300, can we help them connect? Absolutely. It's not just in small classes. We can help them connect in large classes. Diverse citizenship. We know a more diverse group leads to a richer environment. And it's not always ethnic diversity. It can be diversity of thought across majors within your classes. We don't have ethnic diversity to work with. It could be gender diversity. We don't have that to work with. Let's be mindful and be thinking about diversity. Then the last one is a positive perspective. Those who are high thrivers can reframe a failure more quickly than those who are low thrivers. Okay? Energized and thriving college students report themselves as being busy. They are busy. It's not them sitting around with no time on their hands, but they feel in control of it and they feel energized by it. They love it. Versus, I don't know how to handle this and do this. Okay? So what's the takeaway from those, to me, the findings of that? Is thriving is malleable. We can intervene as faculty. We can make a difference. We can help them be successful now. And again, I'm hoping the back of your mind is saying, Right, what's the obligation to this? Well, if we want a thriving campus, I think we have an obligation to this. So different pathways to thriving. Students experience this differently from her research. Again, this is still Dr. Schreiber's research. Finding a major that's a good fit. This has to do with advising your roles as faculty, pointing them in the right direction. If it's not your major, being willing to put them in the direction of the major that will actually fit, versus trying to talk them out of a major that's your competitor. And they talk about that in the merit school, and like, let's have holy envy, and be like, hey, that's really great, it doesn't work for us, you're probably not a good fit for what you said. Finance is an awesome fit, and that's okay. It's okay. So I went through a lot of majors as an undergraduate, and it was a relief to finally find it. It's like, I do feel at home. And that's true for our students now, okay? Getting involved in meaningful campus activities. Her research shows, and we know this, it's different by socioeconomic status and ethnicity and lots of variables. Students connect differently. On our campus, so I had a student last semester who identified quite quickly to me. She was in a comment, she's very outgoing and extrovert, and she said, yeah, we're Catholic. And then I got talking to her a lot. And she talked about how the Catholic organization on campus, and that they don't, there's about, I don't really remember, I think she said there's about 55 students who are Catholic on campus. They have weekly activities, but there's only about 5 or 6 who show up. She goes up to the University of Utah to the Newman Center, and she loves it because she's a very committed Catholic, and she loves that there's a place for her to be with students like her. So getting involved means different things for different students. How can we help that student who maybe hasn't found that niche yet to get involved somewhere? Okay? Again, it comes back to these rewarding relationships with faculty. Spirituality. In her research, which demographic do you think, or which ethnicity do you think spirituality matters the most to? I heard Hispanic, it's actually African American in her research, okay? Matters greatly to them across the country, all right? And then the sense of community. Where do I belong, where do I fit? That has to do with those relationships, okay? Divergent paths, I just wanted to highlight a couple more things. So they have students who are racially and ethnically diverse from the majority of students, have limited pathways in many ways, that her research has shown, and that are different across racial and ethnic groups. So just to be aware of that. Want to think about these divergent paths to thriving. For you to think just for a second here, as we're wrapping up, how might students of color, how might first generation students experience your classes different than the majority demographic? I had not previously thought about this. In my class, I don't have a lot of ethnic diversity, but if you have 300 students in your class, you might actually get to that. First generation students, do we even know who they are in our classes? Have we asked that question? The data on campus in terms of grades suggests they experience your course differently. How might this affect their performance? We know grades, not all, but there's data to suggest that they're experiencing your class differently. Why is that? First generation student, why would a first gen experience your class differently? They may not even have it, yeah.
Well, they don't have the same reference point, and also, just talking to some of my students, they feel a lot of stress and pressure, right? They're like the hope of their family, and so they don't, especially when they start to get overwhelmed or feel like they're behind, it adds this like layer.
Yeah. They don't have resources at home. They may not even really know that, oh, they can withdraw from a class. They may not know that. But a parent who's been through college may be able to tell them, you can withdraw from a class. So again, to be aware of that even in your classroom, just that as a mix. Yeah.
This semester I had a number of English second language students from foreign countries, which I hadn't had before. And I was struck by how, even though I think they came from college-educated families, but their education systems in their own countries are very different than what our classroom experience is.
Yeah.
And so that was another group that I hadn't really thought about needing to think about differently.
Yeah, we were talking about this with some American Heritage faculty related to GE, and one of the American Heritage instructors said he had a student come up and say, now what is Philadelphia? He didn't realize Philadelphia was a place because it's an international student. And what is, like, thought Philadelphia was a theme. And so just that, like that awareness, is important, okay? I don't know how it impacts BYU, but nationwide, the growth of new students will come from students of color and low-income students. And we know with our the new approach to enrollments here on campus, or admissions, that we are getting a more diverse student body. Okay? So just to finish with just a couple more thoughts, thriving is really important to all of us, but for all students across ethnicity, socioeconomic status, a sense of community was the strongest contributor to a sense of thriving. So how can we build community in our classes, in our departments? How can we build community on campus too? Every interaction in the service quality industry and customer service, it's the moment of truth, these touch points. Every touch point with a student is sending a message. As an undergraduate, I was very shy, hated going to a faculty member's office. In the one major I tried, I always felt like I was an intrusion on his time, and they were all his's at the time. His time. I never felt fully comfortable walking in that door. I still might not now, okay? How do we respond to them? What's our reaction to them? They view that as a reflection of campus, okay? For better or worse. When you read down through alumni questionnaires, there are students who internalize very much how faculty talk to them, okay? So as we finish up here, we won't discuss this, but as you go on throughout your day-to-day, what role do you play? What role do I play in whether students thrive at BYU? You may not have thought about that. So I encourage us to think about that in your classroom and in your work. So thank you very much.